everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Nerds Be Heard podcast. I'm here once again with my co-host, Matt. How's it going, Matt? How's your week been?
My week's been great because MCU is back and we have a show to review, which means we get to talk about all our predictions, just like the last time with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, only this time with a much more expanded universe that the world of Loki has introduced us to. So I'm in a great mood.
Me too. I really enjoyed the first episode. I must say, so far, I know we have talked about this a little bit offline, but out of the three Marvel shows, I feel like this is going to ultimately be the big one that everyone's been looking for, that people are going to be talking about. You know, how does this connect to that? What's going to come? I do think we'll finally get a big cameo of some sorts. I really just thought the first episode started off with a bang. What did you think?
Yeah. So I think it started off. I was up and down on this show. When it started, I was like, "This is great. We're looping in Infinity War. We're looping in all these different aspects of the MCU. We're bringing back, obviously, the fan favorite character of Loki." But then it started to get into this territory where in the beginning, and this changed towards the end of the episode, but in the beginning, everything was really lighthearted, and even Loki was just everything was just like comedic. It was comedic relief. He doesn't take anything seriously. He's just funny, and he's just poking fun. And I was like, what's going on here? It seems like another Thor Ragnarok, and you know how I feel about Thor Ragnarok. But as it progressed, the Loki I've grown to love, that takes himself very seriously as a god of mischief, that takes himself seriously as a conqueror, as a king, as a leader, or ruler. Let's say ruler. Leader is not really the right term. Started to come out, especially as the emotional ties to his family and his past and future, which we'll get into, really start to take hold. And the Loki I've grown to love started to kind of shine through again. So it was an up and down episode for me, but I do feel like this is the beginning of a very new, very expansive MCU. It kind of opened the door for endless possibilities of where we can get into, and I want to kind of talk about that. And I think I have some theories. I think you have some theories. But overall, I was satisfied with the episode. I'm definitely going to keep watching, and I'm definitely going to keep watching with bated breath. Although to this day, I still think of the three shows, the first episode that takes the cake out of all three is still, for me, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Very hard to top that action sequences. I'm an action guy. Loki didn't have any action, really,
No.
not on the same scale. So,
and I don't think we'll get that type of action in this show. It's just we will get action sequences. I think more probably more along the lines of the CGI type stuff, which I know you're not the biggest fan of. This is definitely going to be more of like a crime thriller. I think that's like the genre they're trying to go with for this one, where WandaVision was kind of sitcom-ish, and then obviously we had the traditional action type show with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But I personally, unlike you, I am a huge Thor fan. I love Thor Ragnarok, but I do like how I felt like in the first episode, we got the Loki that we've seen throughout the entire, MCU. There has been times where he is the god of mischief. So we were getting the comedic parts of him, but then there definitely is the serious side. And I think they're really going to kind of how we said with Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's really, that was their time to shine. I know Loki has had that kind of on the big screen, but he's never been the main character. And Tom Hiddleston is just such an amazing actor. He's owned this role. He is up there for me with the Robert Downey Jr. He is Tony Stark. Like, I can't really see anyone else portraying this role. And I'm just really excited to see him him shine. So
Yeah, so you touched on something that I think is so important. We've talked about it on this podcast before, but it really is now just solidified to me. I mean, the casting in the MCU is the best casting in movie history, period, because they get it right every
time.
single time. There's
That's
not
Kevin
been
Feige,
one
Matt.
miscast.
It's
Yeah,
Kevin
there's
Feige.
there's not been one miscast, not one. And not only is it like, okay, it's great casting, these are Oscar worthy actors and actresses coming and playing pretend with costumes, with tights, doing comic book movies. This is something 10 or 15 years ago, none of us could have ever dreamed that we would be taking it this freaking seriously and it would work. And so what this show has solidified, we are now 3 major television shows into the MCU Disney Plus kind of limited series environment, and they're all hits in their own vein. And what I'm learning, I have grown in my friendship with you and in doing this podcast to respect Kevin Feige at an older level. I always respected Kevin Feige, but I now believe, now that we're the 3rd show in, we've been disappointed, you and I and a lot of the fans, with only one thing about these shows. And it's that we have these really huge goals and visions of what's going to happen, pun intended with vision, of what's going to happen in these shows, the cameos that are going to happen, how it's going to kind of launch into the TV show, the cinematic universe, right? But I just realized what Kevin Feige is freaking doing, and he's doing the same formula that started with Iron Man in 2008. And what he's doing is he's starting small. And he's like, okay, you're going to dream, you're going to hope, and all this stuff, but we're really not going to even scratch the surface. Okay, now we're going to get to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we're going to take it a little bit, like take the Dora Milaje and bring them in. We're going to get a couple of major cameos, but not like at the scale you're probably hoping for. And then Loki comes around. And this, I know it now, because of what this episode was able to unfold. This is going to have something huge, and it might even be after the credits on the last episode. It might not even be in the show itself. There's going to be a major reveal. There's going to be a big cameo, and it's going to connect into the next phase of the cinematic universe. That's somehow going to connect into Black Widow. It's going to connect into the Eternals. It's going to, and then more particularly Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. This is big. I know that this show is big, and I think he did the slow burn for us.
He totally did. And I mean, I love it. We've gotten spoiled as fans because the content has been so good for so long. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is like the rebirth once again of the MCU with, Endgame concluded that Infinity Saga. So, we got to start from somewhere. And I do like how the beginning shows of this phase were characters we knew, and then we're ultimately going to get into the characters that haven't been introduced on the screen before, whether it's She-Hulk, it's Moon Knight, we're going to get Ironheart later on, where there's just so much coming. And it's really, I know we've said it in the past, but I really feel like, I don't feel like this is just as good as the movies. Like, I think Kevin Feige has done that. It's like he's like making longer stories that we can enjoy in the streaming format, which is just he's adapting to the environment that we live in now. And it's just been really, I mean, that was the first episode of Loki was so high quality, in my opinion. The cinematography, it had such a unique like eeriness to it. I loved the music. I do think the whole concept of the show is really interesting with the TVA, which I know we'll get into. That organization has kind of allowed them, I think, to do whatever they kind of want. bend a little bit to get the story to fit. And it's really, like we said, you just mentioned, opening up the multiverse, where we're going to get tons of different crazy characters. People are going to come back. I mean, as it is, we see there's already different versions of Loki in the timeline, and they kind of hinted at in the beginning of the episode. There was kind of like an animation where they were showing with the timekeepers how I think they were foreshadowing a Secret Wars, which is going to be the big event that all these Disney Plus shows are leading up to. A Secret War had already happened. And the timeline that we have been watching as fans has been the one that has unfolded in all the movies, that there's now going to become the new Secret Wars. And Loki, I think, is going to be part of it. By this is starting off that big event by timelines getting, all messed up again.
Yeah. So I think it's important. So for our listeners that watch the show but aren't as big of comic fans and don't understand how this all connects, or even people that are listening to our show that watch us first, like spoilers, like to read the last page of the book first, then go watch the show and see what you can unpack. Let's do a quick 5-minute discussion of what happened in this episode, and I think we can do it in 5 minutes, and I'll take a quick stab at it, right? But
yeah, go for it.
Basically, Loki, we come back to the story of Loki, right? And it's back to the scene that he's in Stark Tower, like in the original Avengers, right? And he's getting carried away. He's got his cuffs on. We've revisited that scene, obviously, in multiple movies now, and he is the Tesseract basically falls on the floor after the Hulk smashes through the door when he's forced to walk down the stairs, can't take the elevator because it's too big. He's in a moment of anger, slams through the door, knocks over the Tesseract. It slides over to Loki. Loki picks it up, vanishes, and that is the start of this epic television series. And we have ourselves a little throwback to Iron Man 1. Loki ends up in the desert, laying there on the ground, sprawled out, just like Tony Stark once he escaped from the terrorist cave. I'm not sure if you caught that reference, but that was actually a confirmed Easter egg for Tony Stark and Iron Man. And immediately Loki gets introduced to the TVA, which is the Time Variance Authority.
Yep.
Is that correct? Yep. And which we, as viewers, if you don't know the comic books, you don't understand, as viewers, you're like, who are these people and how do they have so much control and power? What's going on, right? So they put them under arrest. They're like, you are in kind of you are against the TVA policy. You are a deviant to the normal timeline. You have to come in, blah, blah, blah. And Loki's just cracking jokes and you can't do this, you can't do that. Anyway, they bring him into this kind of, what I'm guessing is a place of no time, right? They bring him in for basically questioning. He gets his jumpsuit as if he's in prison. They confiscate everything. They take the Tesseract, and it's this really eerie world where you gotta basically go through this process. It's like you're at the DMV. It's like, here's this little coupon and or ticket, and this is your place in line. Go in line and you're gonna basically get brought forth to the TVA, and they're going to deem whether you're guilty or non-guilty of breaking with the normal timeline. And essentially, Loki, being the god of mischief's like, I ain't listening to you guys. I'm the most powerful guy. You guys are nothing. You're blah, blah, blah. Finds out his powers don't work in this world. And then he starts to get a little bit nervous, sees the only other person in the room. Actually, there was multiple people that you passed through. There's another Easter egg. Not sure if you noticed, it was like 3 seconds, but there was a scroll. Did you see it?
Yeah, right when he walked in, they were like right there in the courtroom.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
I'm like,
cool.
ooh, all episode. I'm like, ooh, look at that. I saw that. So anyway, he notices another guy that's fighting back. I lost my ticket or whatever, get basically evaporated. And then all of a sudden you see the god of mischief, Loki, probably for the first time since we've ever seen him on screen, scared. And he's like, okay, I don't have powers. That guy just got disintegrated. What is this place? Right? Gets brought forth to like a judge, and the judge is basically like, are you guilty of X, Y, and Z? And he's like, am I guilty of being Loki, the god of mischief? Yes. Am I guilty of being, yada, yada, yada? Yes. Am I guilty of deviating from the time or whatever the heck you guys said? No. And then they're like, wait a second. It becomes this crazy thing. And so, anyway, they're about to declare him guilty, which probably means he's in for a lifetime of some sort of torture or reset or whatever it is. Something bad's gonna happen to him. And then our boy Owen Wilson comes in and crashes the party. And yes, that was a pun on words because he's in Wedding Crashers, which announcement came out last week. They're making Wedding Crashers 2. Owen Wilson comes in, the charismatic, the screen grabbing, attention grabbing, amazing actor Owen Wilson in a perfect casting once again comes in, and he goes, and we've learned about him now. He had like a 5-minute scene where he is obviously an agent for the TVA that goes out and sets corrections for people that have deviated from the set timeline.
He's like
and
their
so
superstar.
Superstar. So the TVA, before I finish the what everything that's happened in the episode, what is their purpose as far as what are they trying to accomplish as far as what the show has showed us already?
Yeah, I mean, what they're trying to accomplish is keep things on track the way they're supposed to be. They have established in this show that they are in charge of everyone, that you actually don't necessarily have free will. They know every choice you're going to make, and it happens because they want it to happen, even if you think that you're making those choices, which is really, really bothering Loki because he just is not buying into that crap at all.
Yes, my philosophy teacher would love this episode. I remember my college professor always talking about free will. Loki is like, every decision I make, everything I do, you guys have nothing to do with it because I'm in charge of my own destiny. I'm Loki. I'm the god of mischief, right? Constantly saying that. I'm going to win because I made it so. I am going to rule because I made it so. And slowly but surely throughout the episode, he starts to realize just how in control these people are and how every decision he made wasn't his own. It was based on a predetermined path that is set on a specific timeline, and any deviations of that timeline get completely extinguished right away so that the world operates as is. Now, this is exciting territory for the MCU because of a couple of different things. One, the idea that Tony Stark on the timeline that we watch was destined to go through everything, was destined to say, I am Iron Man, was destined to take on Loki, was Loki.
Yep.
Destined to take on Thanos and to defeat him at the end. It connects back to all of the Avengers movies, Iron Man 3, when he's having post-traumatic stress and when he's having all these visions, right? Tony Stark kept having these visions, pun intended, vision, of Thanos before he had even met Thanos, right?
Yep.
He was seeing the future. And so this is somehow going to come together into this. There are multiple versions of all these characters, and perhaps they're all connected in some way through a soul, through whatever it is, which is why Tony was able to kind of see the future as a human being with no special powers, right? And why there's all these coincidences across these timelines, right? So the TVA, basically, as I've seen it, as far as we've seen today, is sole purpose is to make sure that the multiverse does not exist. It always deviates back to the predetermined path.
That is a perfect way of saying it, because That's exactly what Loki is going to make happen, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes. Predictions. Let's wrap up the episode quick and then get into predictions, because I think you're heading down the path I exactly want to get into, right? So basically, Owen Wilson comes in, and what's his character's name? Because I just want to call him Owen Wilson.
Mobius.
Yeah. Mobius comes in, and he's basically like, I can use Loki. We need to use him. We should not sentence him to guilt. Give me time with him. He can help us. And we don't know how he can help us, but he can help us. Takes Loki into an interrogation room, starts kind of drilling in. He's like, if you're honest with me, I can get you out of this. Just tell me the truth about everything. And then slowly but surely starts to peel the onion and start to show Loki, look, I have your future. It's right here on a screen. And he shows Loki everything that happened to him after that moment at Stark Tower, all the way up to his ultimate demise when he took on Thanos, and actually shows his family's reaction to his death and everything. And all of a sudden, Tom Hiddleston, to your point, is such a great actor. In a matter of seconds, you see him go from completely, I don't believe this is BS, I'm the god of mischief, I'm cocky, I'm arrogant, screw you, to breaking. Watching his own future unfold and seeing how it all happened, breaking on screen in a matter of seconds. And the acting is impeccable. And his soul basically just breaks. And he starts to accept that perhaps he does not have free will. Perhaps these people have something that's a greater power. Anyway, God of Mischief figures out a way to escape for a time being, and he starts navigating this freaking area, finds the Infinity Stones, which are being used as paperweights by the administrative staff. All right. And now he's like, this is just absurd. What the hell is going on? Right. Uses everything against them. And now him and Owen Wilson come back together at the end. And we come to the conclusion that Mobius, I just want to keep calling him Owen Wilson, is basically like, hey, Loki, we're after somebody and you can help us get him. He is pivotal to basically causing turmoil and chaos. He's taking on the TVA and destroying everybody, and he's potentially the catalyst that's going to ruin everything for this one streamlined timeline. That's what I deduced. They didn't say all that, but that's what I deduced, right?
Yep.
And we find out that it's another version of Loki. Yes. And that's why Loki is so pivotal to helping them. That's how the episode ends. What are your predictions with that information?
My big prediction is Owen Wilson is actually using this Loki because he is working for the other Loki. And it's just some big elaborate plan that he wants to take down the TVA. That's my big prediction. There's a reason he is so wanting to go off book, because even though Owen Wilson, I said earlier, his character Mobius seems to be like the superstar of the TVA, like he is their go-to guy. He's running the show. It sounded like he was breaking major protocol by talking to Loki and trying to do his own thing. Like, it wasn't just him being cocky. It seems like that isn't something that normally would happen even for him. So that kind of made me think there's this larger plan that is going to unravel. And I mean, obviously Owen Wilson's a big name. I feel like his character is going to have a much more meatier role rather than just them being buddy cops. And the first thing I kind of thought of was, you know what, this is why he wants to learn more and more about this version of Loki to help that other version of Loki do whatever they're trying to do. That I'm not 100% sure with yet. But there's something going on, and I ultimately think he's bad. Okay.
Interesting. I don't share the exact same theory, and we're gonna play this game because we're gonna come back at the end and see who's closest to reality. But I think that somehow, whether Mobius is in on it or not, I personally don't think he is. I think he's honestly, genuinely trying to use an alternate version of Loki to figure out the next move of this Loki that's taking down everything that he's helped keep in order for how we don't know how long. He's the past, he's the present, he's the future, right? Time works differently in the TVA land, right?
Yeah.
So what I think is going to happen is Loki's going to help them figure out the next move of alternate version Loki, right? And this is going to give Tom Hiddleston range, right? He's going to get to play multiple versions of Loki and play with it a little bit, which is really freaking exciting. But what I think ends up happening is that he, being the mischievous kind of master of kind of trickery that he's been, I think what he's going to do is ultimately play them to his advantage, gain their trust, start to kind of, say, hey, this is what I would do, probably nip it in the bud for periods of time, kind of help them for a little bit. But over time, he's going to start learning their kind of inner workings and their secrets. And Loki, being stubborn as he is, I am the master of my fate. I am going to show you that you have no control over this version of me. I have free will. He is going to destroy the TVA. He's going to partner with alternate version Loki to destroy the TVA and inherently cause and create the multiverse that ultimately leads to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man, every movie here on out. And what that's also going to lead to is exactly what you're talking about, the Secret Wars, which combines X-Men world with the MCU we're aware of, with every other version of the character you can possibly think of. And there's going to be Secret Wars, and it's going to connect to WandaVision, because they even hinted at it a little bit with some of the commercials with the, what are those pills? What do they call those pills? What's that one Easter egg they had?
Like one of the commercials that was in the show?
Yeah, it was Nexus. They were like, "Oh, get your Nexus pills. It'll help cure that, whatever." Right? So Nexus has its own freaking implications for the whole MCU and how everything ties into the Secret Wars. And so I personally think this all somehow connects, creates the multiverse. X-Men are definitely involved, and we are on the brink of. Here's what I think, though.
I'm loving where you're going with this, because I do think obviously this is gonna, like we said earlier on, this is what's creating the multiverse. But continue.
And well, what I love, we've talked about this, so it's all methodical. And so the reason they started the first 3 shows on Disney Plus with characters we're already familiar with, but stories we have not yet explored, and characters that we love, but stories we have not yet explored, was to keep the long-term viewers invested without just launching new characters and try, that we might get bored with or not, have enough emotional connection to. And when Tom Hiddleston is the Loki and Tom Hiddleston have this in common. They are masters of their own fate. Tom Hiddleston was not supposed to be this big of a deal in the MCU. That was not Kevin Feige. That was
Tom Hiddleston. That was
totally Kevin Feige watched his performance and was like, this freaking guy is potentially the best villain in the history of movies. He's so good. He's so lovable. He's so charismatic.
I mean, I'll go as far to say is I think he is the best actor in the MCU.
Ooh. I can't
when
disagree.
You first see him in Thor and Avengers, would I say that? No, but he has really grown to be he is one of my favorite characters. He is just such a great actor.
Yeah, I think he's a great actor. I will venture to say what makes him so great isn't just his acting job, it's his charm. He makes being bad good.
Good. Totally agree.
And there's a commercial that if one day when we're on these pods, when we say something, we're actually going to then drop in the video so you can see it, but we have to get the rights to all that stuff. And we're not that big yet, guys. But there is a Jaguar F-Type commercial. And it has it has Ben Kingsley, Tom Hiddleston, and who is the big bad Sinestro in Green Lantern? What's the actor's name?
Mark Strong.
Yes, Mark Strong has those three actors, and they fire up F-types one at a time, and they're like, one thing about being British is you can be a villain and you can be mean and classy at the same time. It's a great commercial, high quality. It was actually aired at a big football match, soccer.
Yep.
And it was like a huge event. Super awesome commercial, and it shows just how freaking charming and how awesome Tom Hiddleston would have been as James Bond. I think he would have been a great Bond, by the way. Rough around the edges, still got the charm.
Agreed.
He's just so damn charming as a villain.
He really is. He's just a charming dude, man. He's charisma. The epitome of charm, and he's so charismatic. It's like I wouldn't want to be in a room with him. Like everyone's totally on top.
Yeah, well, definitely. He's definitely an attention grabber, right? And that's what happens. He stole every scene that he was in the Avengers, and he's with a star-studded cast, and he steals every scene that he's in. Honestly, in all the Thor movies, he's the only one I actually gave a shit about, and he's the villain half the time. Well, he's like an anti-hero, right? But that's what. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of from acting chops perspective if he's number one, because there's just so many damn good ones.
There's so many good ones, but
I mean, even Benedict Cumberbatch is incredible.
I would say that is like the close second, or they're equals. I just don't think he has the opportunity to shine as much with his character as Tom Hiddleston does, if that makes sense. Yeah. If we're talking about other movies, like, Benedict Cumberbatch totally, hold his own with Tom Hiddleston or potentially surpasses him. But Doctor Strange, the character just doesn't, I don't think he has those opportunities.
He doesn't have the opportunities. And then, but like, I also think about these onesie-twosie characters that came in and just stole the show, but didn't have any more room. And I bring this up, and I'm always going to bring it up because I can't wait for freaking Armor Wars. But if Justin Hammer doesn't come back, Sam Rockwell is a phenomenal actor as well.
He is. It's funny. I feel like we haven't seen more of him just because his style, I don't think really wants to play ball with the big budget type Marvel stuff. I know he was in the movie, but like I can't envision him signing these like ridiculous contracts where he's, owes his life to Marvel, where a lot of these other guys did. I mean, Tom Hiddleston's a perfect example. Him and Chris Hemsworth, I mean, they were nobodies. They were like these two little babies when they first signed on to Thor, and now they're two of the biggest household names.
I think I might have seen something you haven't seen. Did you see the digital short with Justin Hammer in prison?
Oh, yes, I have. I totally forgot about that.
So he's willing to come back for stuff like that. I think
I love him. I love him. I want him to come back, and I do think he'll be in Armor Wars.
You can't. That's the thing. I will actually lose faith in Kevin Feige if they don't. You can't have Armor Wars without Justin Hammer, especially when you have such a powerhouse that you cast in it, unless you try to do it in the multiverse and bring in a different version of the character. It's just so pivotal. You got to have Hammer Industries. So, but anyway, we're diverging a bit, but
One
Where
big
were
thing
we?
too that I wanted. We were having fun that. But one more thing that I wanted to add on to my prediction was to make it even more grand scale how yours was. I think that Loki, the series, is going to introduce us to the new Thanos, who is going to be Kang the Conqueror. And I don't know if we'll see him, but I think that could be how it ends, with it being mentioned that, you know, Mobius / that Loki is working for him. Kind of, you know, going parallel how that version on the main timeline of Loki was working for Thanos. But I do love your opinion that this Loki, there's a reason that they were so adamant that you have no free will, and Loki thought he did. He is totally going to show them that he does. I love that, that like your prediction with that.
Yeah, and I think that's where we were going. It's just that is they decided that Loki was going to be such a big part of this next phase, at least from a catalyst perspective, because of what he's brought to the role. And obviously that wasn't part of the original plan, but they're like, all right, this guy's got the chops. We're going to make him a huge part of this next phase. And who can pull it off better than Tom Hiddleston? And hopefully they head in that direction. But then it also got me thinking about topics we've discussed on our pod before, which is alternate versions of like Tony Stark, Captain America, played by different actors like Tom Cruise for Tony Stark. But if they're going where I think they're going, it's that there's a main timeline and then divergence to that timeline. And those divergence are ultimately what causes the multiverse to happen, that they have under control, but Loki blows it up. But those are the same versions, same people, not different actors. Like you're going to have Tom Hiddleston times 10, which excites me for the reason of, hey, you've got a chance to bring back Robert Downey Jr., but upsets me because it's like, wait, maybe these rumors that like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire aren't in Spider-Man are actually true, which would blow.
Yeah, I do like that idea of saying this does give an option to now have the original actors come back, but I definitely think Andrew Garfield and now Tobey Maguire, I can 100% say are in that movie, because the purpose of that is to set up Sony with their own Spider-Man, so that Spider-Man can be in the Venom movie, for example, since they're not under the MCU. I think that's the quote unquote business reason for that, and it's just going to be cool as hell for fans.
Nerds, I have an alert. A huge alert, because Charlie just mentioned it, and I have to call him out for not being a big enough nerd. Charlie has not seen Venom.
I have not seen Venom.
Charlie refuses to watch Venom because Kevin Feige had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. I do think I'm going to watch it though now, because I want to see the second one, because now that Sony and Disney, I think, are, you know, friends now, that I do think Tom Holland could end up having a cameo in that movie.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it?
Yes.
There has been so much weird stuff and coincidences happening over the last couple of months. And I believe something very big is happening. And I think Loki is the beginning of it. Something huge is happening in the MCU as we speak. They are all these behind the scenes things have been starting to finally come to fruition. Whoa, holy crap, Charlie. We were just snapped away by Thanos version 49. That was the most intense experience of my life.
I didn't even feel it.
How long were we gone, guys?
For like 5 years.
Jeez, oh my God, I have a daughter now. The other
Wow.
version of me. I don't know. It's so weird. Oh God. So
What are we talking about?
I don't know. What the heck were we talking about? We were talking about, actually, I'm gonna continue with because you cut fuck you, Thanos, or F you, Thanos. You can bleep that out. You snapped me out in the middle of the most epic rant / excited dialogue of all time. And I'm not even sure where we got cut off because I kept going. But basically,
We didn't hear much of the rant, so just start the
you
rant.
didn't hear much of it?
No.
Are you sure? Oh man. Okay. Trying to remember where I need to start. I don't remember. That's it. He wiped half my brain out too, man. Crap.
We were talking about, at least I was, and I think you were going off of that. Spider-Man and Toby.
Oh, there's two of me. Hey, alternate version, Matt. What the hell is up?
Yeah, what is
Version
going
32.
on?
This is crazy. Whoa. Hold on. Let's just let's just end one of these. Hold on. This is great. All right, bye, alternate version, Matt. He's gone. I'm back. And now I have
got
a
a
shield.
hold of you.
Now I got a shield. This is awesome. So wait, what were we talking about? The TVA just wiped the other version of me out. I'm the new version because I'm the one that's more compliant and I don't give a shit about free will.
Yeah,
welcome back.
That was amazing. I obviously was just my one version on the timeline. But we were talking about, I believe we were getting into the whole Spider-Man crossing over into Sony. You were ripping me for not watching Venom. And
I was
even though I heard supposedly, which is going to really bother me now for me to go on a tangent, but I want you to finish yours, that, Tom Hardy has that ridiculous accent in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have it in the new one.
That's just Tom Hardy. You know what I mean? He's got these weird accents that he puts on.
I think Andy Serkis, I don't know if you know, he's directing the new one.
Yep.
He probably thought it was ridiculous. He thought it was ridiculous.
My precious. I got to do. Schmeagol needs the precious.
He's also Snoke.
Stupid fat hobbitses.
Hey, you're not going to get to partake in the new sweet Lord of the Rings prequel because it's animation.
Yes, guys, as you know, I gave Bad Batch a shot. I am not an animation guy. I don't know why. It's hard for me. And Lord of the Rings just announced they are coming out with a new movie on top of the Amazon live action show that they're doing, which I'm going to watch like a mother. They're also doing a movie in anime. They're not even calling it animation. They're calling it anime, which is
Japanese
interesting.
Style. I think it's going to be that way. Like it, which just makes it pretty unique. It's kind of interesting to have this story be told in that type of animation. I think anime is just becoming more and more mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon had a lot of success just recently with their superhero show Invincible. And that, I think, got people to see, hey, we can make something that the masses are going to like. And it's just going to keep going. Because even the new Masters of the Universe is sort of anime style as well.
Yes. There's they're going to have, I think a lot of these studios, they finally sealed the Amazon MGM deal. We talked about that a few times, but it's definitely set in stone. Like all these studios, all these companies are going to do exactly what Disney's doing, where you have your mainstream version, you have the spin-offs that are kind of cartoon version. They did it with Universal. Not that many people know this, because it's not as popular, but they made a Fast and Furious spinoff for kids. That's a cartoon.
See,
that
that's the
ties
problem.
in.
So there, not to cut you off, but because I know we can joke about this because I am a big animation fan. Matt obviously is not. But I look at like the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, they are not made for children specifically. Star Wars
Yeah.
in general, George Lucas always tell you it's made for children, but it's definitely made for adults, and fans will enjoy the show. Where the Fast and the Furious, I think it's Spy Racers, that is clearly made for children, which I think they missed the mark. And they made it, Netflix also has a Jurassic Park show which ties into the movies, which I started to watch. I will finish it because I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan, but that's clearly also made for children, that it just doesn't hold my attention span as enough that I need to watch it, which I think the Clone Wars has shown other companies now, hey, we can get into this game and get a bunch of people to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And rant for myself.
Well, hold on to your butts, because you mentioned Jurassic Park, and just today they released a poster, a teaser poster for the new Jurassic World, with the return of the one, the only Sam Neill, as well as most of the other main cast from the original Jurassic Park. And the poster couldn't be better. It has the same. If you guys saw Jurassic Park, it had the whole start of the dinosaurs came from a mosquito that got fossilized, and it had dinosaur DNA in it. And this poster has a mosquito on the leg of a T-Rex and just says Jurassic
awesome.
World. It's perfect.
If you follow us on Instagram, you would have totally seen the picture. So you should be doing that.
Yeah, why are you not? Actually, I see a lot of people that tell me they listen to our podcast just now, following us over the last couple of weeks. I'm getting these people following. I'm like, hey, where have you been this whole time? There's content on there daily. We break news. We break news before anyone else breaks news.
We do. You would have seen that poster. You would have seen
that poster. You would have seen the trailer for Eternals before most other people. You would have seen some of the exciting news that came out regarding some of the rumors with Spider-Man. You would have seen every time there's breaking news, we're on top of it within seconds. And you're following us, you're going to be ahead of the game, and you could be the cool guy at the office. It's like, did you hear that Jurassic World's coming out?
We're here for you for that.
We are your.
So speaking continuously about Jurassic Park, so as everyone knows, Matt's a huge Fast and the Furious fan, and I know he has his tickets to go see F9. Are you seeing that in
cities?
Are you seeing? Is one of them in IMAX?
Yeah. So I have opening night because I don't know where I'm going to be for work. So I bought tickets in 2 cities, and only one of them has an IMAX theater. And the one I have an IMAX theater, I bought that does have I bought the IMAX, and then the one that's local to where I live is not an IMAX theater. The IMAX theater is actually quite a drive. The other one's right next to my house, and I actually am pretty sure that I'm going to be in my hometown, or my new hometown, and not be able to see it in IMAX, which sucks because that has the extended cut of the preview to Jurassic World.
That's what I was getting at, which I really want to see that. I actually do think this movie's going to be pretty damn good. And the Jurassic World movies, I like them. They're fine. Nothing will ever be better than the original. But Colin Trevorrow is a huge fan of the series. He directed the first Jurassic World, which, I mean, in my opinion, he was tasked to do exactly what J.J. Abrams was for Star Wars, to get people excited in the franchise again, because it had been dormant for a while. It's kind of ironic that he was supposed to end the Skywalker saga and he got fired. And we've talked about this before. I'm really bitter that Colin Trevorrow didn't get to do that. So when that happened, he was like, dude, I'm going to go back and now just direct the final installment in the Jurassic World trilogy. And I think he put a lot of, care into it. It was definitely his idea to bring back all the original cast members. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think it's going to become a full circle and have a lot of nods to the original.
I hope so. And in my opinion, it was a huge mistake not to bring the original cast in its entirety back up until this point. I mean, because Jurassic World I thought was great. Jurassic World sequel I thought was garbage. So I have trust in Colin to bring something great to the trilogy's end. But what bummed me out about both Jurassic Park 2 and Jurassic Park 3 was that they had kind of half-baked half the cast of the first one, and their own like individual stories. And maybe he finds a way to now like connect all those stories in a way that works and brings them back together in a way that unfolds really well. I'm a big fan. Most people aren't, but I actually really liked Jurassic Park 3 when it brought Sam Neill back. Because I just love Sam Neill. I also a huge Peaky Blinders fan. And so I think that's actually his best performance in a movie or a TV show. And so to see him come back to the world, it makes me really excited. But, to see him interacting with Chris Pratt is going to be pure comedy gold, because that character putting up with Chris Pratt's character, gold.
I agree. I think it's going to be great. And even Laura Dern's back, which is awesome. Like that's going to be like the nostalgic feel of that franchise, where it's going to be different than what the first two brought, because it didn't have, it had Jeff Goldblum, but he was wasted. I'm happy he's going to be a full-fledged character in this movie as well, because he's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. Super cool. And he's been dealt a crap hand, even with that reboot of Independence Day, which was terrible. Like, he just has been dealt a terrible hand. And I think this is probably that.
Did you at least like him in Thor Ragnarok?
No, I thought that goatee was ridiculous. Do you know how I just said was ridiculous? Do you know what that's a nod to?
No.
So Blade Trinity, Ryan Reynolds, which many people attribute the character that he played in Blade Trinity to be the reason he was cast as Deadpool, because it's basically Deadpool in the Blade universe. So Blade Trinity, he's getting tortured by the vampires, Ryan Reynolds. Hannibal King is the comic book character that he plays. Very sarcastic, very witty, just like Deadpool. And he's getting beat up. And the girl finally is like, all right, where's Blade, or whatever they're looking for, right? And he goes, well, first of all, your haircut is ridiculous. and then he's like, so, anyway. But I did that on purpose to bring up Ryan Reynolds for this reason. Ryan Reynolds, this is what my rant was about to be before I got cut off. I was talking about all the exciting things that were unfolding with these kind of windows opening, and then something's coming. Something big is what I was saying, right? All these behind the scenes, behind closed doors, contracts needing to be signed, Kevin Feige with his string on a wall connecting everything, came together over the last couple of weeks. It had to, because everything has started to behind the scenes make sense. For example, Ryan Reynolds on Instagram posted to his stories a duffel bag. Oh, cool. A little duffel bag. What's it going? It's like a backpack. What's that doing there? Oh my God, that's Deadpool's mask hanging out of it, just ever so slightly. He is hinting at something. Now, there's one of three things. Can you see that? Three things that could possibly be going on. One, he just happened to come across his mask and thought, I'm just going to post it because I love this character and it's always close to my heart. Nah, not true. 2, they finally agreed on a script, director, whatnot for Deadpool 3. Or 3. They not only decided on how Deadpool is going to play a factor into the rest of the phase of MCU, but he's going to make a cameo in something, whether it's Loki, whether it's Spider-Man, whether it's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That mother effer is showing up in some way, shape, or form in the very near future. I am sure of it.
Agreed. He's 100% in Doctor Strange, in my opinion. And I even think it could be an amazing cameo in Loki. I even thought of an idea where, Loki kind of in the TVA kind of convinces him that he's a comic book character and he's not real. And that's kind of how they're going to have he's probably going to be the only, it's going to be ridiculous. They're totally going to roll with that character, how it was in the Fox movies, to bring him into the MCU. He's going to be probably the only actor who crosses over. And they're going to have to make a joke out of that. There's just no way it's not going to happen, because we are going to see a new Wolverine. We are going to see like all the new X-Men. We're going to see where Wade Wilson is going to be the only character to come over, and it's not going to make sense, but he's going to break the, he's going to break the fourth wall and he's going to say something funny.
I love that you just said that. It's not going to make sense, but he's going to break the fourth wall. Here's what I think the great and powerful Kevin Feige is going to do for the casuals, which is also going to be great for the non-casuals like you and I. I personally believe that after major deliberations, just trying to figure out how does this guy fit, because he doesn't, but how does he, right? I personally believe Deadpool is going to be the audience, basically the narrator, in a way. Not, he'll narrate at some points, but not like physically narrating, but in terms of the audience. There are so many people that just watch these movies that don't know how the comic book works, don't know how all this inner workings make sense, and it's a lot to digest. And they're about, with what they're doing with Loki, they're about to unload some stuff that if you're not a comic book fan, it's going to be really difficult to completely comprehend right off the bat, right? And so I believe in my heart of hearts, Deadpool's going to be the guy that's like, what the hell is going on? None of this makes sense. And then he's going to look at the audience and be like, all right, so here's what's going on. You guys are normal casuals. You guys are this. And he's going to explain everything and break that fourth wall in these moments where it's like we have no idea what's going on. Almost like what was done really effectively, if anyone had seen the movie The Big Short, when they're trying to explain really complicated financial crisis impact, right? And they're like, oh, there's this junk bond market and this happens, and then the leveraged mortgage-backed securities and all this stuff, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And then all of a sudden it's like Ryan Gosling zooms in at the camera and he's like, all right, so you guys really don't know what the hell's going on, so here's Margot Robbie to tell you in a bubble bath, right? I feel like that is kind of what Deadpool's gonna be for us, and he's gonna be like, this is the wildest thing ever, and like, and I feel like that'll be the best way to introduce him, keep him relevant, probably have him in a lot of these movies recurring. And
yes,
right, yeah, I think they just got Ryan Reynolds.
I think Ryan Reynolds is biggest payday in Marvel history, in my opinion, is what happened. They showed him the money.
I hope so.
And
he
deserves
deserves
he got a very big contract, because I think, going off exactly what you said, he will obviously get his own movie, but he will show up in a bunch of movies and have cameos. There's no way that he's not. I've heard Kevin Feige likes Deadpool. I wouldn't put it up there as one of his favorite characters, but one of his favorite characters is Spider-Man, and in the comics they team up a lot, and I think we're going to see that.
Well, agreed. And actually, so I personally think that I think he somehow shows up for a cameo in the new Spider-Man, because I think they interact a lot in the comic books, and their look, everything, there's a lot of similarities between the characters, and they play off each other really well. And I think him and Tom Holland will be an even better bromance than Jake Gyllenhaal and Tom Holland. um I I personally think he's gonna make a cameo in that. I really do.
I could see that. And it would be awesome.
It
I'm all for
would.
it. I mean, he's going, even with Tom Holland, he is definitely the future of the MCU as well. He's going to be around for a long time. That's another reason I think Kevin Feige is really playing nice with Sony. He kind of was like, hey, you let me have Spider-Man, aka my version, Tom Holland, for years to come. I'm going to help you with your movies, and we can, have them cross over. Because at this point, a lot of the movie fans, as much as some aren't savvy, they know that the difference between an MCU movie and a non-MCU movie. Because when it leaked, I don't know if you remember this, they had made that contract to have 2 Spider-Man movies and then him appear in Civil War and the Avengers movies. That was done. I don't think they wanted to re-up it, and that leaked, which they definitely didn't want to happen. And the fans rioted. They were like, you are giving Spider-Man back to Disney, or we were never going to come see your movie. Sony got cocky. They thought it had nothing to do with Kevin Feige. It had nothing to do with the MCU. He made Spider-Man popular again, and they thought they were going to ride off into the sunset by, jumping on that bandwagon, and it was going to still be successful. The fans told them it wasn't going to be successful. I was one of them. I would not have gone to see that movie. Even Tom Holland has come out and said he basically got enough phone call. He called Bob Iger, and at the time was like, dude, we need to make this deal happen because this is important for the fans. It's important to me, because I think he saw, a treatment of what the movie would have been like without Kevin Feige and team, and wasn't that good.
You're lying. You would have seen it anyway. You would have totally seen it.
Yeah, well, I didn't see Venom. I haven't seen Venom.
Yeah, but Tom Holland having already been in the MCU, you would 100% go see the movie.
You're right. I would have seen the movie, but
just like more, I say, more just
yeah, go. You're not going to see the Fast movies, but you're going to go see them. No, you're right. I'd see them, but I'd have this bitter. There's just something about, and I was thinking about this earlier, how we were just talking about how, they never really miss the mark, Marvel, between casting, stories, all the movies and TV shows are good. That's going to continue on forever just because of the type of storytelling they're doing, where that doesn't translate. I hate to go back to the age-old Marvel versus DC, but they just can't get that going right. And people aren't always excited. Even myself, I still haven't even, I'm admitting this one too, my big nerd, I still haven't seen Shazam. I haven't seen Birds of Prey. I just I want to. I'm busy. I only have a certain amount of time, and I don't have to see them. I mean, I wake up or stay up late to make sure I see these shows on Disney Plus when they launch, because I want to be able to read about them the next day. These DC movies, I can care less if it's not the big, the Trinity.
Birds of Prey was dog crap. The only thing that was good about it was Ewan McGregor.
Exactly, which is why I want to watch it, but
I watched it on a plane. So I'm the same way. They just haven't, I don't know if they have to just start from scratch and really try to replicate, but you can't replicate. I truly believe that Warner Brothers just needs to be like, look, there's a Batman universe, there's Superman's movies, and not try to connect it. I just don't think
they can anymore. It's just too late. It's just too late. They're so far behind. I agree with you. Just make a Batman universe, which now supposedly I've heard rumors that the Batman is garbage, and they're going to delay it again because they need to change it, that they're not happy with the movie.
Oh, man.
Which is just come on. Quite frankly, no, go.
I was gonna say it's probably good, and Warner Brothers is just stupid.
I've heard it's gotten bad. Like it's been tested for some audiences and it's not being well received. I mean, quite frankly, the best thing they have going on right now, and it is a CW show, is Superman and Lois, which I don't think gets enough credit. The show is pretty good. We're getting off topic here now, but they've really have created a new Superman. I guess we're never off topic.
It's nerds.
They've created a new interesting Superman story that really hasn't been told. And it's, pretty high quality for a CW show. It's like the most interesting thing that I'm enjoying about DC.
That's because it's got Emmanuel Shrieky, aka Sloan, and she makes everything better.
Yeah, she plays Lana Lang. She's pretty good.
She's a better Lana Lang than Kristen Krug.
No.
Hey, she didn't join some sex cult and recruit people and yada yada yada. Look up.
That was
both.
Both. She was in it too, or did she got brainwashed though by Chloe, right?
No, it's
not that it makes it right.
It's the other way around. Kristen Krug brought Chloe in. Oh. And then Chloe rose to the top of the thing and started recruiting people. Yeah, man. I was deep down the interwebs trying to figure out what the hell was going on because this doesn't make sense. Because I had a childhood crush right there. I'm like, there's no way Lana Lang is this evil. Yeah. Go read about it. I didn't
realize that. Or if I did, I didn't remember. I just was totally focused on Chloe Mack being like the,
because you didn't have a crush on Chloe Mack like you did Kristen Krug, so you thought it had to be her. She had to be the one.
Well, at least Kristen Krug still, I mean, she hasn't really been in anything, I guess, of late, but she was still a working actress where, yeah, whatever. I've actually heard they're trying to get Tom Welling back to be a version of Superman reboot Smallville, which would be interesting.
That would be awesome. And maybe you know what? That's what WB is doing now. That's actually going to be successful. They're just bringing back cuts. Did you see that they're trying to get Joel Schumacher to extend? I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard because the movies are dog crap. They're like, do the extended cut of Batman Forever. And now it's a huge movement.
My mind was blown. This is now really going off topic, but
who cares?
Have you heard of the show on Netflix that stars Ewan McGregor, Holston, about the fashion designer?
Yep.
Which I recommend. It was really good. I'm a huge Ewan McGregor fan, but so in the beginning of his career, he's showing that, he has someone working for him who is really addicted to drugs and is kind of not up to Holston's standards, which is ironic that he ends up becoming a major drug addict that ruins his career, but he kind of forces this guy out. It was Joel Schumacher. He started off as like a guy in fashion and costumes. And he worked for Holston. I was like, Macaulay Culkin's little brother plays him in the show.
Well, that's where the rubber nipples came from.
It does. That's the first thing I thought of. Like, he created these outlandish, crazy costumes because that was his background. I was shocked. Like, I didn't realize until I started reading up about the characters after the show that's who that character was in real life.
How big of a Ewan McGregor fan are you really?
I mean, I've seen most of
never knew I could feel like this. What's it from? Like I'd never seen the sky before. Want to vanish inside your kiss.
Keep going.
Every day I love you more and more. Listen to
clearly not as big a fan as you.
Can you hear it sing, telling me to give you everything? Come on, dude. I was told in high school when I auditioned, I used to do musicals. And I was told
Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, and I was told I had the voice.
Forgot he's in that movie.
Someone said, you've got Ewan McGregor's voice. And I was like, oh, really? They're like, yeah, you guys have the same voice. I was like, okay, that's a really big compliment because he got the best voice in the world. I know I don't have as good of a voice as him, but that's come what may.
Dude, he has unbelievable range.
So he
And like,
does.
I like totally like, I guess I'm not as big of a Ewan McGregor fan as you, but Moulin Rouge isn't. Weirdly enough, I do like musicals, but that movie's fine for me. I don't
See,
love it the way a lot of people do.
See, the movie. Here's the funny thing. I love the soundtrack, and I love the show that they actually made off of it. They actually did like an off-Broadway show of Moulin Rouge. I think it ended up going to Broadway, but that's better than the movie itself. But the soundtrack, I had on repeat. I still, to this day, will have moods where I'm like, I'm gonna listen to Moulin Rouge soundtrack because it's just Ewan McGregor is a badass, and he's got like one of the best underappreciated voices in musical history. So,
Yeah, he definitely doesn't showcase that enough.
Yeah, and I'm a big Ewan McGregor guy. Loved The Island, him and ScarJo. Underrated movie in my opinion.
I agree. That's when he was trying to get more into like bigger budget type things. And then he realized I don't really need that type of stuff. I'm gonna be more picky because I'm a good actor.
Yeah. Except there was that one movie that I just didn't really like. Was it Big Fish or something like that?
Oh, I like that movie. But I like Tim Burton.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. So we touched on a lot of news. Is there anything else on the interwebs and things that have come up in the last couple of weeks that we haven't touched base on because we took a break from the Nerdverse and focused on Fast and Furious with our boy Noel G?
Yeah. Well, two things, but one is actually breaking news today. A big casting announcement for She-Hulk. Jamila Jamil just got cast as the main villain. Are you familiar with her?
Jamila Jamil.
Have you ever seen The Good Place?
Yep.
That's like her big role. I honestly don't watch I didn't watch The Good Place, but she's also weirdly enough the host of this game show called why can't I think of it? It's with the Impractical Jokers. I'm drawing a huge blank, but look her up. She's like, once again, going back to casting, she is like one of the hottest actresses in demand in Hollywood, and they got her for Disney Plus show. Like,
dude, your microphone turned into a green screen for a second, and the Marvel banner was in your microphone for like a few seconds there. I don't know how you got that to work, but you need to make that keep happening. That was yeah. Wait. Oh, yes, we gotta figure out how to make that special effect work.
I do. That's some big news.
Yeah.
And we never talked about the Eternals trailer.
Yes.
Which is a little old now. I know you were underwhelmed by it. I really liked it, but the more I thought about it, that I've let it digest, like they didn't show enough to the point where I do think they were trying to showcase the beauty and artistic side of this movie that I think is going to be unlike any Marvel movie, but the masses don't want that. They're going to enjoy the movie regardless. They should have shown more epic scenes, in my opinion, now after thinking about it.
Yeah, it's the cinematography looks great. It's definitely going to be grand. But even the attempt at humor just went like right past me. I'm like, that was just not even that funny. It's like, oh, I could lead the Avengers. Like, why is that funny? I don't get it. You don't know enough about these characters yet.
No, you're right, because I liked it in the beginning, and you said that to me, and the more I thought about it, you're right. Like that joke would play better when you watch the movie, when you're getting to learn more about the people, because I'm sure that comes kind of midway point. But
then again, I think to me it's just Marvel being Marvel, and there's certain areas where they just take advantage of the knowledge that the fans have And they're like, you don't need to know how these characters somehow know what you know, even though they weren't there, they didn't witness, they don't know. Somehow they just take for granted that it was like, because you as the audience know, everybody knows. For example, in Loki's like, in the beginning, he's like, oh, like I'm at fault when it's the Avengers who traveled back in time.
So I thought more about that.
Yeah.
I think, though, that's where, if you think long and hard about that, I can go both ways. But he is aware of that because he does see things happening in that scene in Endgame. Like, he sees Ant-Man, he sees Hulk. Like, why are they here? That I know he wouldn't know any better because that was happening to him in that time, but clearly something was going on. I'm assuming that's going to be.
How does he know they're time traveling?
I'm hoping that's more explained, or you're right. Maybe it was just something that
it is a plot gap. It is not going to be filled. It's a plot hole. I found it. You will see. They're never going to bring it back up. You'll see.
Yeah. I mean,
your boy Kevin Feige is no longer perfect, and he has been flawed. And it is me who has uncovered his flaw, and there's no way to fix it.
Or you heard someone talking about it. You don't know.
Listen, these big studio movies, they make mistakes. For example.
I think that's a pretty big mistake to make, though.
Yeah, well,
you're right.
Want to talk about big budget billion-dollar franchises that make mistakes? How about an entire movie coming out in 2 weeks, Fast and Furious 9, that has a whole premise about a brother to Dom and Mia that has never been discussed this far in the franchise.
It's ridiculous.
And there are actually a specific line in Fast and Furious 4 where Mia says, how do you say goodbye to your only brother? And Dom says, you don't.
Yeah, they're just going to say, like, yeah, he doesn't consider him a brother, yada, yada, yada. I completely agree with you. I'm not going to put them in the same category, though, unfortunately. Storytelling in that franchise is not important. Big stunts is important to them.
What are you talking about? Family. All right? Everything is okay because family.
I can't even keep a straight face. And even that John Cena's his brother is, I guess, can't really get into that because, anyone can play anybody, but like, that's just ridiculous that that's who they picked to be his brother.
Speaking of brothers, sisters, genders, did you see the other little politically correct thing they dropped into Loki? Did you notice?
That he's gender fluid?
Yep.
Yeah. Though Tom Hiddleston is now coming out saying that he's always played the character that way, which I find interesting.
That would be what he was told to say by
exactly. No, I know
dictators over at Disney.
I don't care though. Like, I honestly, I think it's a good. He's a good character for that to be the case.
Perfect character for it. It's a great way to just drop that in there.
Yeah, make a lot of people happy.
Good points.
And he's a great character to do it. I know they've made comments that there's going to be other characters within the MCU that are not straight either that you think are. Kevin Feige has dropped that.
Well, yeah, no, so straight, like, no, it's a sexual preference, for sure. There's gonna be a lot of that coming in the pipeline, which is gonna be great. And for people to feel represented on screen, we talked about that in Captain America: Winter Soldier. It's just it's almost too late. Like,
I agree.
Speed up.
The Eternals has everything though. Like, that is going to have the first, what Marvel will say, straight. They're not going to throw in, like, I know one of the Russo brothers played a gay character, which I think was a huge cop out for Marvel to promote in that scene in Endgame when they're, doing their, grief counseling. So Russo, he was in the Endgame, and he was, he made a comment, he had to get back to his, like, he's missing his husband. I know they made a big deal about that. I thought that was pretty, ridiculous. I'm really happy that there's going to be more representation going forward, and the Eternals is going to have something for everyone, which I think is great. That's another reason I think that movie's going to be really big, because it's going to resonate with a lot of people. They're not necessarily showing that right now in the promotional material, but once word gets out, I think it's going to become a fan favorite, like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I do like where they're heading, and I love the idea of everyone feeling like they have representation on screen, so they have something to aspire to. And I'd like it when it's natural and when it is done with purpose and at the very core of that character and who they are from the moment they're introduced to the screen and it starts to develop. Where I don't like it is when it's purely PC. I'm going to drop it in there just to, I almost feel that's a disservice to those people where it's like, oh, we're just going to now say this person's this and drop it in there as an Easter egg. It's kind of like you're just pandering and you're not actually spending the time to truly build out a character that way. Like, I'm sorry, they just didn't build out Loki that way, and now they're just saying gender fluid. It's a PC points play versus this next phase where they're actually from the core, the development of the characters, the introduction of the characters. That is who they are, and it doesn't get made up in the end. It's purely from the moment the actor is told this is how you play into the role. So. And that's what they're trying to say. They're trying to say that where Tom Hiddleston's always, this is what it always was, but bullshit.
You're right. I mean, unfortunately, we now live in a day and age where this is more accepted, which is great. When these big budget movies were first, the MCU wasn't what it was. They unfortunately weren't going to do that. It just is considered a risk in Hollywood. I don't know why it still is. It's actually insulting to a lot of the performers that are in all of these movies.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Marvel is going to be the first franchise for Disney where it's such a juggernaut. They're going to let them do what they want going forward, like you said, with the Eternals being the big one. Because I've heard, I mean, I don't want to read all the spoilers, but you're definitely going to, see on-screen romances play out that are going to make a lot of people happy that haven't been done before.
Right. And do it naturally, do it the way it's supposed to be done, and honor those characters instead of just throwing a quick little Easter egg. That's not representation.
Which you wouldn't even have seen if you're not a huge fan either. So you legitimately would have to pause that frame and read that card.
Didn't you?
I'm just saying, unless you're
in movies all
unless
the time.
You're I did, but unless you're a sweaty, and unless you're reading about it, that's such an Easter egg. People wouldn't know.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean too. It's don't make it an Easter egg. Make it real. Make it proud. This is Pride Month. Be proud. You know what I mean? Just be open about it. Let them say it from the get-go, right? So, and that they're about to go do that, which is good. But and then they're gonna. I'm sure there will be, if there's not already, articles about it to just give Disney that PC points play. Do it with integrity, and I think it'll be great. And but yeah, we're in a really good phase for this franchise, this universe, the cinematic universe, to actually authentically provide representation to people that haven't been represented ever in cinematic history, unless it's for comedic relief, pity play, or some sort of movie about character study, rather than it just being natural and part of normal life. So that's what they're going to do now, and I think it's great. So do it, and don't do these side plays in the meantime, is my opinion. But they're trying. They've got their hearts in the right place. They want to get good returns for their shareholders.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Speaking of that, before we go, bring up one other thing. I don't know if you've heard. all the drama going on about the Mandalorian. Have you heard any of this?
Well, there's been drama with the Mandalorian for the better part of a year, but
Well,
you mean
so I
new
guess
drama?
Variety does an actors on actors, where two, actors just, shoot the shit like we're doing right now. And their latest one was with Ewan McGregor and Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
And Ewan kind of just opens it up, basically being like, have you started shooting, season 3? And he flat out was like, no, I haven't done anything for that. Now there's rumors that this show has been filming.
Yeah.
There's a lot of controversy. Is this true? Is it not true? And now Collider had an exclusive that they came out saying that, which a lot of rumors have been, like the Book of Boba really is like the next chapter in the Mandalorian saga. And they kind of were told by a rep that think of it as like Mandalorian season 2.5. And they're also blaming it on that show not filming yet on the Obi-Wan series that took up all the volumes, which is like the sound stages that they make everything on. I don't buy any of this crap. It pisses me off as a fan. Now, I know we've talked about this on our podcast before. Pedro Pascal definitely is causing tons of drama. There were rumors that he did this in season 2 and that was squashed, but I now really feel like that's not the case. That's why he signed that deal to be in The Last of Us. It was kind of like screw you. And
Mhm.
I think John and Dave Filoni are now coming up with ways to continue this universe going. And like, who knows when we're going to see Mandalorian season 3? There's no way that, Disney's going to allow this. Will really piss off, speaking of their shareholders, which made me think of this story. I mean, that's their biggest property, especially for Star Wars. How are we just going to end this? And now there's rumors that Mandalorian characters are in the Book of Boba, which really makes it feel like the next season. But I just think this is ridiculous that Pedro Pascal is this big of a diva.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. It really bothers me as a fan. He became one of my favorite characters, and I'm really like not liking him. If this is true, it may not be, but something doesn't fit.
I personally hope, and you're going to be so mad at me, I hope everything about the Mandalorian falls apart, fails miserably because of what they did to Gina Carano. So Pedro Pascal did the same thing she did, just on the other side of the fence, and is still employed, but maybe he's about to lose his job too. Keep Jon Favreau, keep Filoni, do something else in the universe, and I'll be very happy. And it's actually another rumor that Jon Favreau is telling Lucasfilm, stay out of my business.
Yes.
I've got this handled. And yes,
I believe that,
yes,
because supposedly Kevin Feige, and you know how much I simp for him, he was willingly going to come help to turn the Star Wars universe into what the MCU is. And Kathleen Kennedy was kind of like, yeah, nope, I have it under control. You clearly don't. Now there's this Marvel, I've heard from rumors that there's this Marvel Star Wars war going on throughout Disney. And as much as I love Marvel, Star Wars will always have a little bit above that, but they are losing to Marvel when it comes to making content. And the fact that she has that big of an ego that she won't let, I mean, Kevin Feige is the younger, newer version of her.
Mhm.
And she's definitely feels threatened, which she shouldn't, which she has nothing more to prove. That's why she's going to really wants to make sure that Indiana Jones is badass, because I think that's going to be the last movie she makes for Lucasfilm, and she's going to ride off into the sunset. But to tell Kevin Feige, I don't need your help, is just ridiculous. It's crazy.
And well, a couple things to unpack there. One being Indiana Jones, which we're going to get into in a second before we turn off this episode, which is going to be one of our more jam-packed episodes with all the juicy details. We are giving everybody news galore that they're probably not paying attention to, because it's not headline news, right? But personally, right, you said MCU is beating the heck out of Star Wars in content galore, and I agree. But I also believe that the Kenobi series might be the greatest piece of material. I just have a feeling is going to be the best piece of material that has been launched.
I mean, I'm going to agree with you with that. And that's just because me being a fan, but there's just something, we said this earlier in this podcast, Marvel never, if people are upset about something, they talk about it for a day and they move on. People are still complaining about The Last Jedi. Like 3 years later. That has such divided the fan base. They just need hit after hit after hit. And why not let the guy who makes hit after hit after hit come in? I've even heard rumors that he was willing to come in and fix it and not take any credit for it. Which for someone of his,
Jon Favreau?
No, Kevin Feige.
Oh, Feige. Oh.
I mean, I think Jon Favreau, I'm a huge Favreau fan, but at the end of the day, he is a creator as well. I think the reason he hasn't been given the whole keys to Lucasfilm is because, Kevin Feige's a producer. Jon Favreau is everything. And I just don't think he wants to just be a suit. And he has other, priorities where Kevin Feige just runs Marvel. I'm going on a tangent. I'm just like, so.
No, I'm laughing because you said suit and it made me think of Entourage.
It's true. And which
You're
Kathleen Kennedy is a suit as well. Like, she's a producer. She doesn't, I hate to say this, but I don't think she cares about Star Wars. Like, Kevin Feige's a fan. She's just trying to make movies. She's trying to make hip, politically correct movies, just to put on her resume. Like, George Lucas must be rolling over that he put her in charge. I mean, that's what's so ironic about this. I know there's no way he's happy about how the Skywalker saga unfolded, but he put Kathleen Kennedy in charge. And at the end of the day, even though she had an answer to a higher being, which is Bob Iger and the shareholders of Disney, she is the leader of Lucasfilm. And when you're a leader of a company, when stuff goes well, you get all the praise. And when stuff goes bad, you get shit on. And like, I don't know. I can go on for this forever. And
it's hit the fan.
I'm very passionate about it because it just really bothers me. It shouldn't be this hard. Like, people show up for a Star Wars movie. They just do. I think
they should just, I think you should be the Kevin Feige of Star Wars.
I mean, I should.
I'm putting that in the universe.
I'm happy they finally gave Dave Filoni what he deserves, because he is a guy who's now in charge of. They secretly promoted him. It's supposedly been since last year, but it showed up on the website that he's now, basically in charge of all creative, where before he was just doing his own stuff. He is the true apprentice of George Lucas. He's another guy that I love, which is why I know if you gave the animated shows a chance, you would like them as well. But I get it.
I can't believe you used the word apprentice instead of saying Padawan of George Lucas.
You're right. It's technically his Padawan, but I'm on a rampage right now.
Yeah. Hey, be one with the Force. The light side is still here. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Suffering leads to the dark side of the Force. Listen.
Moral of the story is Mandalorian season 3, it just shouldn't have been messed up like it is. And it's upsetting that drama between these actors is like causing issues for the fans.
Mandalorian, down with Mandalorian. Give me a Luke Skywalker spinoff with my boy Sebastian Stan. Give me my Kenobi series. Give me everything.
For all we know, Mandalorian could actually be done. And we've said this before, the season 1 and 2 it's a finished story. You don't really need it. You could, and like we said,
and now you got Book of Boba.
And I think what's happening also is at the end of the day, Pedro Pascal signed a contract. He'll just come in and just do, his voice work and never be on set. He has to do that. He's contractually obligated to do it.
We don't want it.
It'll just be that. He won't
give us other stuff. But Boba will replace him. and
he's more badass anyway. Like,
but
and this tangent, yeah, we'll talk about
you
Indiana
mentioned
Jones.
Indiana Jones, Henry Jones Jr. The fedora is back. The 85-year-old Harrison Ford is back in action. We've got set photos. We've got a freaking stuntman on a motorcycle wearing a creepy young Indiana Jones mask. It looks like Harrison Ford 40 years ago. Okay. We've got Harrison Ford himself with the fedora on with set photos there. All right. We've had casting announcements. We are in deep zone Indiana Jones 5. I'm just happy that there is at least one more Indiana Jones movie with Harrison Ford in my lifetime, because he's running out of time to do movies at this scale. I mean, he's healthy, but he's old. He's very, very, very old. So
it's going to be interesting how this movie plays out. I've seen or read rumors, which makes sense because they've done it in all the Star Wars movies, that they're going to use DH technology. I don't know if it's going to be for flashbacks. I hope it's not the whole movie. It is going to be interesting. Harrison Ford is the original G. He always will be, but I don't know how he is going to play that character now. I mean, he's as fit and as active as a guy his age could ever be, but it's still, how is that going to translate?
Dude, they filmed Crystal Skulls like already 12 years ago, more 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was running in slow motion, and we were supposed to take it seriously.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I'm sure they're going to, in the story, he's going to play his age, which he did in Star Wars, which worked well. Like, but he didn't have to do much in The Force Awakens. Like, I don't know. It's really going to be interesting, but
yeah, I hope they use DH technology and they do some flashbacks, because young Indiana Jones is the man. I had an idea. You had an idea, but Disney is all about the de-aging software, but it's like, hey, hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. Harrison Ford might be old and you might want to do flashbacks. You have a living, breathing, young looking Indiana Jones that's still alive from the young Indiana Jones Chronicles, who Harrison Ford also joined on a couple of episodes where he said he was telling stories of his youth, and they did the flashbacks, and our boy Sean Patrick Flannery, I'm saying that very specifically, Sean Patrick Flannery, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to say that name one more time. Sean Patrick Flannery, a Boondock Saint, a young Indiana Jones, who's very, very important to the Nerds Be Heard podcast. Okay. Sean Patrick Flannery. And he played Indiana Jones for the young Indiana Jones Chronicle. And I believe that if they were going to do flashbacks, try to have a young Indiana Jones. Sean Patrick Flannery's fit. He's a jiu-jitsu brown belt, I believe. He just did a mixed martial arts movie. He did his own action sequences. I think it would be the greatest ode to true Indiana Jones fans to do flashbacks with Sean Patrick Flannery. What better way to bring Indiana Jones to an end with one final movie where Harrison Ford, the real Indiana Jones, I'm sorry, Sean Patrick Flannery, I still think it would be such a cool little thing. You bring both Indiana Jones back. The fans love both of them. And they're missing the mark there, unless there's going to be some big thing that we're not. I may or may not know a guy who may or may not have said to me that he's got a very busy summer working on something, And that gentleman said to me that perhaps he wouldn't be able to talk to us in some capacity until he's done with said project. Maybe there's something bigger going on behind the scenes, my friend. I got a winky face from
That
a
would
certain
be
individual.
amazing. That would be amazing.
If you guys aren't putting two to two together, just think about it, okay? There is a great opportunity us on the Nerds Be Heard podcast have that is going to happen. I'm putting it out in the universe because discussions are already in play. We're going to have an Indiana Jones on the podcast. I can't not say it. I have to say it. We're going to have an Indiana Jones on the podcast. All right. We're going to have Indiana Jones on the podcast. And I think he's actually going to be in the movie. I think that's what the big project is.
I mean, that would be pretty epic. Though you made me just think of an idea, as much as I would prefer that one. What if, because you enjoyed Solo, right?
Yes, I went into that movie ready to hate it and walked out being like, that was actually great.
What if you make an Indiana Jones with Alden playing Indiana Jones?
It will never happen. It will never happen because Spielberg won't let it happen. And Harrison Ford will roll over in his grave. Although it's funny because he keeps saying, I am Indiana Jones, no one gets to play me, but he was totally supportive of Sean Patrick Flannery.
That's going back to him just being Harrison Ford, which you've even told me before is you truly believe is just part of his,
He's
stitch.
A troll. Yeah. He's a troll.
I mean, I think that'd be pretty cool. I mean, that fact that he played, if Alden, he played the young version in Solo, if he could be Indiana Jones. I mean, he is a good actor. I don't think I love Solo, but his acting chops are definitely not on display in that movie because too many directors. I think he got all up in his head. That was a big role for him. Who wants to, go into a role that's only been played by Harrison Ford? Nobody.
Honestly, the only eligible successor to Indiana Jones, in my opinion, is Shia LaBeouf. I'm just kidding. Was Chris Pratt. I thought he would have been an awesome Indiana Jones. But
I love Chris Pratt. And it's said that Shia had to just go crazy because he's an amazing actor and he could have. I would love to have seen him in a Marvel or Star Wars role, but that'll never happen. But going once again, talking about the shareholders, and for everyone listening, you will never find a bigger Disney fan than me. Everyone knows I love Disney. If the new Indiana Jones movie does well, they're gonna, keep the party going. There's no way they don't make an Indiana Jones something on Disney Plus. It's like the other big. I mean, they're making a Willow Disney Plus show, which is one of another property come out of Lucasfilm. If they're making a Willow show, they're gonna have to do something with Indiana Jones.
Honestly. So Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of my favorite movies ever. Not just
Yep.
It's probably top 5 movie for me ever. And when I think about Indiana Jones cinematic experience versus small screen streaming, I do think that the days of Indiana Jones being this epic cinematic experience that has to be experienced in the movies, it's gone.
Agreed.
It's not a bash on it. It's actually the opposite. Indiana Jones was so ahead of its time, was one of the best action movies ever, and it will always be one of the best action adventure movies ever. But technology is at this level that you don't want Indiana Jones to head in, and I really hope they don't do it with number 5, where it's just this pure CGI nonsense. Indiana Jones is grounded in reality with some somewhat supernatural themes to it, with some couple of special effects and things like that. But it's a freaking archaeologist out there solving things that for the most part have tied into actual history. And the only way to really do that today, I believe, is on a streaming service like Disney Plus, where you can go down all these epic packs, just like the young Indiana Jones did. There were freaking so many different storylines, and you could just have all these different pieces of history connect and be one of the most epic TV shows ever. You find the right
It's
actor.
made for it's like it's screaming streaming show. And quite frankly, I mean, George Lucas, the visionary he was, he knew that this was going to be the format that people were going to consume. I mean, that's why he made Clone Wars. I mean, that is why he made the young Indiana Jones Chronicles. It's just, you can tell more of a story. You can fully flesh out the characters. It really is. Obviously, feature films aren't going anywhere, but I think that then I watch now more TV shows than I watch movies.
Yeah. Well, it's the golden age of television.
Yeah, it just is.
Television in many ways is better than movies. It really is. Case in point, Peaky Blinders. Watch it. Fans, watch Peaky Blinders. It'll change your life, but put subtitles on. I want to play Indiana Jones, guys. Harrison, I'll do you proud. All right. You kind of look like my dad. All right. We've got similar genes, man.
You would be a good Indiana Jones. You would.
I want to be Indiana
You're
Jones.
You're definitely more of an Indiana Jones than a Han Solo.
Oh, 100%. 100%. But I'm also a bigger fan of Indiana Jones than Han Solo.
Which is understandable.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
He's clearly the best part of that entire series. He has no competition, where Han Solo has competition. And just
yeah. I mean, the only in the Indiana Jones franchise, I guess the only kind of character that you can say steals scenes and is, gives him a run for his money. Or I guess you could say Marion, but Short Round, man.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was hoping that's what you were gonna say.
Short Round, dude. Yeah, I was just pissed off he never came back.
Me too. Well, he had his time, and just he's in some of the greatest movies of all time.
I know. I was hoping he'd had a cameo in Crystal Skull. But it's just, that actor, he hasn't aged well. So it's just,
I wouldn't put it past them if they try to get a cameo from him in the new Indiana Jones. Like, why not?
Yeah, why not? But they've already, they missed their opportunity. They killed off Sean Connery. They killed off Marcus. So the only guy left that I really want them to bring back is oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. His friend from Cairo.
I can't think of his name.
Is it? I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want to
butcher
it. But one of the other more memorable characters from the whole series, one of my favorites, and I can't believe I'm really tired. It's like midnight, but I can't. Oh, we're gonna follow up with that. Yeah, that's one of my favorite characters.
We'll dive. I think one thing we should do here on Nerds Be Heard is we should rewatch all the Indiana Jones movies, give our take, and rank them in order from best to worst.
Well, let that be the last thing we do right now. Before rewatch.
Okay.
And then after rewatch.
Okay.
So before rewatch, My order: Crystal Skull,
So from worst to best, right?
worst to best. Yeah. Crystal Skull, by the way, I haven't really rewatched. I personally think is gonna have not aged well at all. So Crystal Skull is the worst. This one is tough actually, because number one is Raiders of the Lost Ark
Yes.
by far and away, like not even close. Temple of Doom and Last Crusade. Temple of Doom is almost, it's like a spin-off. It's like its own little thing. It doesn't really have any connection other than Indiana Jones. Everything else is, it's a prequel, by the way, to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And a lot of people don't know that.
Know that.
Yeah, like you have to pay attention to the dates and you have to be like really invested in history to understand. But it takes place well before the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is why most of the characters aren't in it. But it's so good. It has some of the more memorable Indiana Jones sequences, like the mine cart.
It's definitely like the cult favorite of the franchise, I feel like.
Yeah. It's got him with the machete and half a sleeve ripped off and the rope bridge. It's very, very good, and it's extremely rewatchable. It has Short Round. It has references to James Bond. It has an epic plane scene where they're freaking use a raft as a parachute. It has that epic down the waterfall scene. It is really big, and people forget about those scenes.
Yeah.
Until you rewatch it. And then Last Crusade has Sean Connery and has this epic quest that I have daydreamed about my entire life, which is the quest for the Holy Grail. And that is just cool to think about because it's real. There is a Holy Grail. Like, whether you believe it has magical powers or whatever, it doesn't matter. But there's a chalice that the real human being, Jesus Christ, drank at his Last Supper. Again, religious or not religious, that's just a factual thing that has been determined. Somewhere on earth, whether that's been broken, disintegrated, no one knows. And they made that into a story. And that just excites me. You know how many times I've been on Google looking at for like, what can I find out about like the last known location of the Holy Grail? And I did the same thing with the Ark of the Covenant. And you could do that with Indiana Jones because it's all factual, realistic.
Yeah, it's what makes it. Yeah, it's what makes it really cool.
So I am unable. It's a tie between Temple of Doom and Last Crusade, and hopefully after rewatch, I will come up with which one supersedes the other.
Okay,
what's yours?
I mean, I'm gonna pick, and I'd say obviously the greatest is Raiders of the Lost Ark. The worst is Crystal Skull. I would say the second best is The Last Crusade, and then Temple of Doom. If I had to pick. But it is one series, and I don't want to interrupt you because I want to hear your thought. It's interesting. The first is clearly the best. The latest one is clearly the worst. And the two in between are just both really good.
And so what is 5? Where does 5 end up is going to be crazy.
It's just funny not to go back because I know I was harsh on my girl, Kathleen Kennedy. I think she's going to make sure this movie is awesome. I just do. She's going to want people. She's got nothing to prove. Like I said, she is one of the greatest producers of all time, but she's going to want people to know that the last thing she did for Lucasfilm, everybody loves. Because unfortunately, not everybody loves The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. The only way to ensure success is John Williams coming back to do
He
the
is.
score.
He's doing the score. And supposedly there's been some leaks from the set because it started filming that Indiana Jones is laying some smackdown on some Nazis.
Which, well, obviously. I mean, you have to. You can't have Indiana Jones not fighting Nazis. It's just...
So just that's a recipe for greatness.
Well, the thing is that if you were to go back and watch Indiana Jones and take out John Williams' score, it wouldn't resonate the way it does.
No, John Williams is really he's someone I think you and I can both agree on is the greatest composer of all time.
Yeah. Close second, Hans Zimmer.
Fair.
Very close second. But John Williams, yeah.
He has made every great score basically to ever be.
Yep. Jaws. Star Wars.
Harry Potter.
Yep. Harry Potter. He did and Indiana Jones, which is one of the better ones. Superman.
Yep.
Which I'm playing in my head right now. This stuff changes my life. His music.
I can like listen to that stuff just as pure enjoyment.
I do. I have a John Williams playlist, and I have a Hans Zimmer playlist, and I have a Danny Elfman playlist, and I have a Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor playlist.
Not to interrupt your great composers here, he did Jurassic Park.
Yep.
I mean, he did Home Alone.
E.T.
Yeah, E.T. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Not as iconic, but still a great movie.
Yeah. And I mean, great score.
He's the other thing too, which I know you hate the Star Wars sequels. I like the Star Wars sequels. The one thing you got to say, the score for those movies are still great. He made new songs. Like Rey's theme is probably one of the best songs he's ever made, in my opinion, in the Star Wars universe. The guy just...
Well,
no one will ever come again. Like, I mean, not for a very long time.
He honestly, sorry, musicians. John Williams, Beethoven, Mozart.
You said it, not me. But
fact. No, look, and Beethoven and Mozart move me.
Yeah, they're hard to compare, but I'm agreeing with you. I get what you're saying.
It's the same. Why can't you?
But I just mean John Williams has clearly had a much longer life.
Yeah, a longer life. But if you were to cut his life down a third, it would still... There is no composer that you can listen to a bar of their song and be brought back to an exact moment and an exact feeling and an exact vision of where you were, how you felt, and what it meant to see something on screen for the first time.
I completely agree with you.
I actually, every time I listen to the suite from Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's like, it's heavy, it's emotional, because the first time I saw that movie, I was awestruck, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And that's when I fell in love with Harrison Ford as like an idol, as a someone I aspired to be, was watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, and not just seeing Harrison Ford do really epic stuff on the screen, but hearing that music that you also hear at the end of Crystal Skull that brings you back again. So Crystal Skull, not a great movie, but the end, when they move everything and you kind of see where they had the Ark of the Covenant, and then they moved the crystal skulls there, and then the song from Raiders of the Lost Ark comes on. That specific song, not that dun, 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 not that one. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I'm not really good at it, but it's your, I don't know. I get a feeling in my chest, like this. It's childhood, and it's a very real, soul igniting experience listening to John Williams score.
Completely agree, and the fact that it's just a bunch of instruments. There's no words. There's no lyrics. It really just,
The Mozart of our time.
He's like, weirdly enough, thinking about it, like he's definitely one of the reasons that he made me fall in love with movies, because so many of the things I love, he's a part of.
You know what? I keep putting things out in the universe because they're all going to come true. We need to get John Williams and Hans Zimmer on this pod.
I mean, that
we
would
should
be
do
the
a
dream.
Music episode. We should do a music, because to me, there's directors, there's actors, there's producers. To me, more important, and I'm a musician. To me, more important than all of those combined has always been composer. My favorite movies all have amazing scores.
Agreed. It's just as big of some movies would not be good without the scores that they have. Like they're just as much of telling the story.
I personally believe that it's one of my favorite directors is David Fincher.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally believe that most of the movies that I like from him are mainly good because of the score. Like Social Network, without the Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor score, is a decent movie. With that score is a excellent movie.
Agreed.
Those aren't even epic soundtracks. They're just really cool. But yeah. Oh shoot. We're gonna have a music episode.
We definitely should. But
John Williams.
We talked about a lot on this podcast.
Yeah, it's time to go, isn't it? You're gonna make me go?
I don't want to make you go, but maybe we need to give our viewers, something, leave them on a note that they want to, definitely come back.
You saying I have to go to sleep so I can wake up in 4 hours?
Yeah, I'm doing it for your own good, Matt.
Yeah, that's probably good. I'm so tired. I'm starting to get emotional over music, guys. This is we have to come to an end. But we're coming back every single week to review Loki episodes, which is off to a pretty good start. One last thing before we end. What do you rank out of 10 episode 1 of Loki?
Episode 1 of Loki, I give it a 9 out of 10.
I give it a 7.5, and with lots of promise. And I think it's actually going to move towards 9 and 10 by the last episode. But I think it's going to take a while to get there. But I'm certainly in, and I'm invested. So see where it goes.
I think it's the one. I'll leave everyone with this from my point of view. Out of all the Marvel shows, the way the first episode ended, I really wanted to watch the next episode immediately. Not that I didn't want that for all of them, but this really made me like, I want to see where this is going. And I don't necessarily think it is as predictable. Well, I feel like we predicted a lot of stuff. I know we weren't doing this with WandaVision, but we did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And maybe we're going to be right about what unfolds for Loki, but I feel like there's going to be a lot more twists and turns that people don't expect.
I agree.
Which is exciting.
So till next time, Loki may have an army, but we have Charlie. Signing off the Nerdsphere.
Bye, everyone. May the force be with you.
Always.